Hello guys, welcome back again to another video of your class 11 mathematics. Today's video topic is nothing more than your polar form of a complex number, which falls under your exercise 5, nothing more than your complex number and quadratic equation, and it's the beginning of your exercise 5.2. Okay, so how to solve it? Let me just draw one quadrant, and I say that a line passes from your origin, and I say the origin to be O till P, and I join this one, and remember this is nothing more than the x coordinate, that's nothing more than y coordinate. So similarly this would be your y, and that will be your x, and let me say theta is the angle, and let me say r is nothing more than your root over of your x square plus your y square. And how did I got it? It's about your Pythagoras theorem. So let me just start. It will be let p represent the non-zero complex number. Non-zero complex number z is equal to your x plus iy. Then the point p is uniquely determined by nothing more than your r comma theta. So that means your point p is nothing more than your r comma theta, called the polar coordinates of p. Okay, from here I can say that now from triangle OPQ. Now if you look at a triangle OP, this one is your Q, I can say that your cos theta is nothing more than x divided by r. So that will be your x would be nothing more than r cos theta, and similarly your y I can say it to be r sine theta. And as we know that z is equal to your x plus iy, so that will be nothing more than r cos theta plus I r sine theta. So I can represent this one, I can take r common, and that will be your cos theta plus your I sine theta. Okay, so if I happen to go with your next page, your r cos theta plus your I sine theta denotes, that means I got z to be your r, and then your cos theta plus your I sine theta. So this one denotes nothing more than your polar form of the complex number. Okay, now if I go back and then see that from over here, I can say from here that your tan theta is nothing more than your y by x according to the diagram, right? So let me just come back here. Then also I can say that your tan theta is nothing more than your y by x, or I can say theta is equal to your tan inverse y by x. So which denotes or which is called same thing, which denotes the argument or amplitude of z. Okay, which denotes the argument or amplitude z called as nothing more than amp of z or arg of z. Your amp means amplitude of z and arg means argument of z. So that's all about your theta. And also, as I've said from the diagram, let me go back to the diagram. If you can see the diagram, it's given that r is equal to root over of x square plus y square, right? So also your r is nothing more than your root over of x square plus y square, which denotes nothing more than your modulus of z. Okay, it's called the modulus. So don't forget this tree like that. Your first one is nothing more than r is equal to cos theta plus I sin theta is nothing more than your polar form, and theta is equal to your tan inverse y by x, and also your r is equal to your root over of x square plus y square, which is also known as your modulus, and this one is known as your amplitude of z or argument of your z. Okay, then comes the another important topic known as your not topic, I would say, let me just write an as a note. Okay, and this note is very important. Why? Because this is not there at your textbook. So just look down there very nicely. Let me just try to draw it, and then let me give this one to x, give this one to y. Let me say this one is your quadrant, and let me say this one is your principal value of theta. So if I happen to say that the value for x is plus and the y is plus, that means it lies on your first quadrant, and the value for theta would be nothing more than your tan inverse y by x. Okay, similarly, if I happen to say that the value for x happens to be minus and your y happens to be plus, this lies on your second quadrant, that means the value for theta would be nothing more than sorry, that's mistake, it will be nothing more than your, I would say, pi minus tan inverse y by x. And similarly, if this one happened to be your minus and minus, that means lies on your third quadrant, that means the value of theta is nothing more than your tan inverse y by x minus pi. And lastly, if this one happens to be plus and minus, it means lies in the fourth quadrant, and the value for theta would be nothing more than minus tan inverse y by x. And this all exists whenever the value for x and y is given. And suppose I say that the value for what you call x happens to be 0, and I got the value for y is greater than 0. That means the value for theta would be nothing more than your pi by 2. Similarly, the value for x is 0, and I got your y to be less than 0. In short, it means the value for theta is nothing more than minus pi by 2. And also the third point, if I say that the value for y is 0 and x is greater than 0, that means the value for theta is nothing more than 0. And similarly, y is equal to 0 and x is less than 0. That means the value for theta would be your pi. Okay, so do remember these 3 points is a very important point, and you have to memorize it so that when we do the exercise, it will be easy for us. So pause the video and then try to do this one. Okay, now let us try to do the exercise. So exercise 5.2, and then let me start with your question number 3. Your question number 3 is about I have to find the polar form. So let me start with let z is equal to 1 minus I. Okay, then the polar form is nothing more than z is equal to your r, and then I got here cos theta plus your I sine theta. That's about your polar form. But what is actually z? I got 1 minus I, so I'll just open up the bracket. I'll get here I r cos theta plus I r sine theta. So I can say that here your r cos theta would be nothing more than 1, and your r sine theta would be nothing more than minus 1, the real terms and the imaginary terms. So let me just give it equation number 1 and this one to be your equation number 2. What can I do is that I can squaring and adding equation 1 and 2. I will get here nothing more than your r square cos square theta plus your r square sine square theta, which will be nothing more than 1 square plus of minus 1, the whole thing square. From here I can take r square common, so that will be nothing more than your cos square theta plus your sine square theta, and this would be 1 plus 1. So cos square theta plus sine square theta is nothing more than 1, so r square is equal to 2. In short, r is equal to your root over 2. So this is how I got the value for r. Now I have to find the value for your theta. So again, let me just say that your x plus iy is equal to, now let me just go back and then see the question. The question is about 1 minus I, so that will be 1 minus I. So I can say that such that the value for x happens to be 1 and the value for y happens to be minus 1. So since 1 comma minus 1 lies on your fourth quadrant. Now I want everyone to go back to your note and then see the point number 1. Okay, so if it lies on the fourth quadrant, that means the value for theta is nothing more than minus tan inverse y by x, so which would be minus tan inverse, and the value for y, actually the value for y over here is nothing more than minus 1. Okay, but this minus 1 is actually for us to indicate about your quadrant. So whenever you're given minus over here and you're going to write the value for y or x in over here, always give it to be in positive. Okay, why? Because this one is only for you indicating the quadrant. Okay, so that will be 1 divided by 1, so that means your theta would be nothing more than minus tan inverse and 1. The value for 1 is nothing more than 10 pi by 4, So I can cancel your tan inverse and your tan. It means theta is nothing more than minus pi by 4. Okay, so I can say that the polar hence the polar form is nothing more than z is equal to your r and then cos theta plus I sine theta. So in short, z is equal to the value for r, I got it to be root over 2, so it's cos minus pi by 4 plus I sine of minus pi by 4. So that's all about your question number 3. Okay, in a similar manner, you can pause the video and then write it down, and in a similar manner let us do your next question. Let me do your question number 6, and I say that let z is equal to minus 3, because the question is for minus 3, but I have to write in complex form. I'll just give here 0I. Okay, same thing. So that will be the polar the polar form is z is equal to your r, and then this will be cos theta plus I sine theta, but the value for z is nothing more than minus 3 plus 0I, and if I open up the bracket, it will be r cos theta plus I r sine theta. Now if I compare it, then I get here nothing more than your r cos theta would be nothing more than minus 3, and your r sine theta would be your 0. Again, same thing, let me give this equation 1, and this one to be your equation number 2. So what can I do is I can squaring and adding equation 1 and 2 we get. So if I square in it equation 1 and 2, I'll get here r square cos square theta plus your r square sine square theta will be equal to minus 3 the whole thing square and then plus 0 square. Okay, now same thing, I can take here r square common, so what is left, that is cos square theta plus your sine square theta. So minus 3 the whole thing square is 9, and I can get here r square is equal to your 9, that means r is equal to 3. Again, the same thing, you can pause the video and then write it down till there. So let me go again in order to find the value for your theta. So I can say that again, let x plus iy is equal to minus 3 plus 0I. So x happens to be minus 3 and y is equal to 0. Okay, so since y is equal to 0 and x is equal to minus 3, which is less than 0, now when you go back again to your note and then see point number 3, then we'll get for value for theta is nothing more than your pi. So hence the required polar form is z is equal to your r and then your cos theta plus your I sine theta. That means the value for r, I got it to be 3, so this will be your cos pi plus your I sine pi. So that's all about your question number 6. You can pause the video and then write it down. Okay, now in a similar manner, let us do some question based upon your miscellaneous. So let me start with your question number 1. Your question number 1 is given to be evaluate I to the power 18 plus 1 by I to the power 25, and then I got here 3. So let me just break them two part. So let me just start with the first one. So it will be I to the power 18 and then plus 1 to the power 25 and then I to the power 25, I can say cube. Okay, so once I do that, whenever the power is bigger, you always have to divide it by 4. So it means I to the power 18 will be nothing more than I, and 18 I can say 4 is a 16 plus 2 plus 1 to the power 25 is 1, and then similarly I got here 25, that means 4 6 are 24 plus 1 and then cube. So the next step I can do here is nothing more than I 4k plus 2, the value is minus 1 plus 1, and then I 4k plus 1, the value is nothing more than I, and then I got here the whole thing cube. Remember that whenever you got I at the denominator, the answer, you won't get the answer, so what you have to do, you have to rationalize. So rationalize means I get here I and I got here I. So what can I do? The next step is that I can do here is nothing more than minus 1 plus it will be I divided by your I square and then the whole thing cube. So which will be nothing more than minus 1 minus plus of I, and the value for I square is nothing more than minus 1 the whole thing cube. So I can say is that I can take minus 1 common, so the minus 1 the whole thing cube, and I got the answer 1 minus 1 plus I the whole thing cube. Now use the formula of a plus b the whole thing cube, so 1 cube, so that will be nothing more than 1 cube plus I cube and then plus 3 into 1 into your I, and then you'll got here 1 plus I. Okay, so that will be minus 1 the whole minus 1 the holding cube is minus 1, and I got here 1, and the value for I cube is nothing more than minus I, and I got here, if I multiply I'll get here 3I, and similarly if I multiply I'll get here 3I square. So that will be minus 1, that's not I. Okay, let me just cancel this one, that's not I, that's on minus 1. So minus 1 I got, and that will be 1 plus 2I and then minus 3, because the value for I square is nothing more than your minus 1. Okay, so let me go with the next step. Let me just write on the same thing over here. If you can look over here, I got here minus 1, and then I got here, let me just see, 1 plus 2I minus 3, 1 plus 2I minus 3. So if I do, I'll get a minus 1, and then that will be nothing more than minus 2 plus your 2I. If I take your minus 1 inside, so that will be nothing more than 2 minus 2I, and that's your answer. So that's all about your question number 1. So in a similar manner, let us try to do your next question. Let me do your question number 5. Your question number 5 again is about finding a polar form. So let z is equal to 1 plus 7I divided by 2 minus I the whole thing square. Now if you can look over here, again same thing, you don't need I at the denominator, so let me just expand it. So which will be 1 plus 7I divided by, that will be 2 square plus I square and then minus 2 into 2I. That's your plus. Okay, so what can I do here is there will be 1 plus 7I, and then that will be 4 I squared, the value is minus 1, and then minus 4I. So that will be 1 plus 7I divided by 3 minus 4I. Again the same thing, I don't need I the denominator, so I have to rationalize. So 3 plus 4I, again same thing, plus 3 plus 4I. Okay, so I got till here. So what can I do is that the denominator will be nothing more than your 3 square minus 4I the whole thing square, and your numerator I have to multiply this with this, that will be the same thing, 3 plus your 4I, and if I multiply 7 with 3, that's a 21I, and 7 4s are 28, and that will be your I square. So that will be 3 plus 25I, and then the value for I square is nothing more than minus 28 divided by the value for 3 square is 9, and the value for your 4 is nothing more than 16, and your I square is nothing more than minus 1, so that will be plus. So I got the answer to be minus 25 plus 25I divided by 25. So I got this one. So what can I do is that I got the answer minus 25 plus 25I divided by 25, so which is nothing more than minus 1 plus I. So same thing, so let z is equal to minus 1 plus I. So here the polar form is nothing more than z is equal to your r, and then this will be your cos theta plus I sine theta. So your z is nothing more than minus 1 plus I, which would be your r cos theta plus I r sine theta. That's your I. Okay, so here I'll be getting your r cos theta to be minus 1 and r sine theta to be 1. So same thing, give it equation number 1, equation number 2, squaring and adding, squaring and adding equation 1 and 2. So if I square it, equation 1 and 2, I'll get here r square cos square theta plus r square sine square theta is equal to minus 1 the whole thing square plus 1 square. So that will be nothing more than r square is equal to 2, so r will be nothing more than root over 2. So that's all about your r. You can pause the video and write until there. In a similar manner, let me try to find the value for theta. So if I have to find the value for theta, I have to consider, right? So I can say again, let x plus iy is equal to minus 1 plus I. So that means such that the value for x happens to be minus 1 and the value for y happens to be 1. So since minus 1 comma 1 lies on, now again go back to your note, see the first one, and then it lies on your second quadrant. So if it lies on your second quadrant, that means the value for theta is nothing more than pi minus tan inverse y by x. So again, as I said, no matter the value for x or y happens to be minus over here, whenever you're writing inside the bracket, that will be nothing more than plus, so it is 1 by 1. So I got here pi minus tan inverse, and then that will be your tan pi by 4, because tan 45 is 1. I cancel these 2, so there will be pi minus pi by 4, which is nothing more than 3 pi by 4. So the value for theta, I got 3 pi by 4. Okay, so hence the polar form is nothing more than z is equal to your r, and then this will be a cos theta plus I sine theta. So that is nothing more than 2, and I can say cos 3 pi by 4 plus I sine 3 pi by 4. So that's all about your question number 5. You can pause the video and then check once again.